everybody. Today we're gonna be doing starting with lesson 15, which is loop. Last I promised that we are going to start off with loop. So today we are starting with loop as promised. So let me create a file and call it a lesson underscore 15.py. Oh, sorry. Let me see. It's creating a folder instead. Um, Let me delete this. Yes, delete. Sorry, let me create a folder. I mean a file. So the file is lesson um, underscore 15 py. So loop. We're gonna be starting with while loop. Let me create another file to explain. Let me create a text file. Loop.txt. This is for me to explain what I'm. Let me collapse this tree. So we're going to be starting with loop, and we're going to be starting with while loop. What is a while loop? We have two different types of loop. We have a while loop. We have a while loop, and we have what? We have a for loop. We have a for loop. So what is loop? So before you can we can start off with saying maybe a while loop or a for loop. What is loop? Loops are. Let me let me put it the tabs. Sorry. Um, Loops are say are used. Loops are used. Let me write it properly. Loops are used to execute. Um, loops are used to execute a set of statements while a logical expression is true. You will learn two types of loops here, like I said, which is while loop and for loop. So let me write it out so that you can have it jotted down somewhere. Execute a set of statements. I said a set of statements while uh, a logical expression is true. A logical expression is true. So as far as let me use a word wrap to sorry, let me use a word wrap view. Um, there's a word wrap already. So why is it not coming on a new line? Sorry, I'm trying to have to wrap it in yes so that it can come in a new line. It won't be some text will not be missing while I'm typing. So as far as a particular logical or a set of statements or a logical expression is true, that is loop. It means when you are trying to iterate through, say, when you're trying to iterate through um, list, tuple, string, or anything iteratable. I mean iterate. This is what I mean by iterate. It means to visit each element. You understand? To run a loop on each element. So that is loop. So let's quickly jump to while loop. While loop. What is while loop? A while loop is kind of loop that or types of a type of loop that is repeatedly or executed or that repeatedly executes a block of code as long as a specified logical expression is true. This is it. Uh, this this repeatedly execute execute a block of code as long as um, a specified logical expression. As far as the specified logical expressions remains true. So if a logical expression remains true, the loop will what? run the code, except there's a false. The false terminates it. You understand? Except what? It now hit a roadblock, which is a false. And of course, if there's no roadblock, if there's nothing breaking out of the while loop, it will run infinitely, and that is very dangerous. Your loop will never stop. It will keep running until it reaches a kind of snag that terminates the sequence of it um, running infinitely. You understand? So that's where we founded the word infinite loop. An infinite loop is a loop that continues to run as long as the logical expression is true. It continues to run. That is an uncontrollable loop. That is a while loop. So the syntax for a while loop is, the syntax for a while loop is, say, let me say while expression. Let me put the expression in parentheses so that while expression, while expression, and after the while expression, this expression is your condition. It's a logical expression. So let's say while expression, then you put what, a column, then you indent it. You understand? Because by indenting it, it shows that every statement is under what, that block of code. Like I said, remember Python uses indentation to determine block of codes, while other languages such as JavaScript, Java and stuff, they use curly braces to determine block of codes, to identify what a block of code. So let's say after the while expression, after the logical expression, you have your what, your statement. What the statements are, what, let's statement one, uh, say statement two, statement two, say statement three. You understand? Statement three. So after the logical expression, the statements are what you want the while loop or the Python to do within the block of code, within the while logical expression. So that is that. So here you see from this example now, you will see that the block of code in the while loop is indented, and like I have said, the reason for that is that Python uses indentation to express the block structure of a program. Unlike other languages, Python does not use braces or beginning slash end delimiter to denote blocks. You understand? Instead, it uses indentation to represent what, block of statement. Please don't forget that. So a block is just like, you might be wondering what is a block. A block is just like a contiguous sequence of logical lines, set of logical lines. You understand? Um, all indented by the same amount. And of course, a logical line with less indentation ends what? The block. So the first statement in the block must have no indentation. Well, it must not begin with a white space. Indentation is simply a white space. Four white spaces makes up an indentation. You should understand. It could be eight white spaces, eight white spaces, which is your space bar. You understand? It depending on how you set your system to represent or to identify indentation. But me, I use tab. I use a tab button. It's just for me to, speed up things. But industry, they frown at it. The industry frowns at it, and they said the standard is to use spacebar in four places. Do you understand? You could reduce your indentation to two space bars, and so every two white spaces will now what form an indentation. It depends on how you set your IDE to identify indentation. So, like I said, it must not begin with any white space. That is the first line, the first statement in the block. So you can use tabs or spaces to indent statements depending. But in interview, don't tell them you use tab. Just tell them you use four spaces. So Python replaces each tab with what, up to eight spaces. Minimum of two spaces and maximum of what, eight spaces. So don't miss space and tabs for indentation. Don't try to do that. When you try to miss uh, spaces and tabs for indentation, it may they may be treated as They may be treated differently by different editor, text editor. So that is why you shouldn't you shouldn't try to mix tabs and indentation in order. I mean tabs and spaces for indentation. And that is that on that. So let's try to see how while loop is working in practical. Let's say let's say we want to have a program that displays numbers from um, 1 to 10 using the while loop. Let me write it. Let me write it. Let me write the question one. Question one. Let's say write a program. Write a program that displays numbers from say 1 to 10 using a while loop. 10 using a while loop. So let's say we to write a program that displays numbers from 1 to 10 using a while loop. So how do we do that? Let's see how it works in practical. First of all, the first thing to do when you are to use a while loop is to what? First of all, create a variable and initialize a variable. What do I mean by initializing? Fine, the question says 1 to 10. So it means your initialization will start from what? 1. You understand? If it is 0 to 10, your initialization will start with what? 0. So how do we initialize? Let's say we don't know the number. Let's say the number is say let's represent it with a variable n. You understand? Equals what? What is the initialization? They said 1 to 10. That displays numbers from what? 1 to 10. So let's say initialization is 1 because it starts from 1. If it is 0 to 10, it will be the initialization will start what? From 0. So the while that is the initialization. So the while statement will now be while n, the maximum it will get to is what? 10. You understand? It should not be what? Greater than 10 because this question says 1 to 10. So while n is less than or equals to what? 10. You understand? That is the what? Logical expression there. While expression. Remember the syntax, while expression. So while this, remember I told you that after this, you have to put a colon. You understand? So by putting the colon in VS Code, if you and most other editor, most other IDEs too or editors, whichever you may like, if you punch enter to go to the new line, it will automatically be indented. So if it's not indented, just punch your tab key or you create four white spaces or two white spaces, whichever, or eight white spaces, whichever the case. You understand? So I've printed, I've hit the enter button from it. So it's created an automatic indentation because it is set already. So remember, we are trying to display number between 1 to 10. You understand? So while n is less than or equals to what? 10. That is the condition because the number ends at 10. So it must not be greater than or equals to 10. So it ends at what? 10. So while n is less than or equals to 10, then what do we tell the this thing to do? What is the first statement? Print print the number. You understand? Print what? The number. Print the number. And because you have told it to print the number, what else do we need to tell it? We need to tell it that okay, fine, if you are printing the number, don't just print one number. Let's print all the number as it is increasing. So we use what? We use an incrementing operator. This is an incrementing operator. This is an incrementing operator. Increment, incrementation, incrementation. This is an incrementing operator. I say I equals 1. I equals 1. Now, if I want to increment uh, I, that is increment to increase. decrement to decrease. So by incrementing, I can equally say increment I, either I say plus equals 1. That is, every sequences be adding 1 to every next number of I. Every next number of I be adding 1, be adding 1. You understand? That is what incrementing is. If I say, if I put 2, increment by 2, 3, increment by 3. If I say increment by another variable, say n, increment by the number specified in the variable. Shey you understand? So, or stored in the variable. Then is that I say this, you understand? And remember, I plus equals 1 is the same thing as I I is same thing as saying I equals I plus 1 is same thing. I plus equals 1 is the same thing as saying I equals uh 1 plus I plus 1 is same thing. Then of course, if you want to decrement, let's say if you want to decrement, let me know. If you want to decrement, let's say I equals 1, and you want to decrement, you can have equally say I less than equals to what? 1. You understand? And the same thing as saying I uh equals to I minus 1. That is just it. Then if you want to, say multiple, you can say I times equals 1. You understand? And it's the same thing as saying I equals uh, I times 1. You understand? And like that, like that, like that. So that is incrementing and decrementing. So let's go back to our code. So now, because we have said, okay, we have initialized n to be 1, and while n is less than equals to 10, because 10 is the last digit there. So it is either the number is less than or equals to 10. It must not be more than 10. Print n. You understand? So if I say print n, then does it need to print one number? No, I want it to print all the numbers. So by saying I want it to print all the numbers, so I can equally say n, you need to increment n. You understand? So we can say n plus equals what? 1. You understand? So n plus what? Equals 1. So if I now run the code, let's run the code and see what it will give us. Let's see if we are correct. Yes. So you will see that Python ran the code and of course gave us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You understand? You understand? But we are seeing something here. What are we saying? Is listing them vertically. What if we wanted to list the number horizontally? That is to maintain a single line instead of printing them out in a multiple line. Let's say yeah, because let's say we want Python to say, okay, print this number, but I want you to maintain a single line, not to print them vertically, because I want to see them on what? On a single line on the console. So how do we do that? You just put comma and say end equals what? uh empty empty string. So by saying this, it means Python should print on a new line. This is a little bit advanced, but to me, I don't feel I don't feel bad letting you know what you may meet in the future. So just know that this is, in fact, quite a number of person don't know that this thing exists anyways. So print n comma end equals this. That is to print it on a what? On a single line. Let's see how it is working in reality. Let's see. You'll see that instead of printing it like this, it's printing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But let's put a little space in between the empty string. Let's put a white space so that it can give it a space. You understand? Let's see. Yes, it's a 1, 2. You see that it's now giving a space. Here, there wasn't a space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the more space you give to it, the more spaces it gives to it. So that is that. Had it been we now say n greater than or equals to 10, we will run into an infinite loop. What is an infinite loop? An infinite loop, remember I said it's a loop. An infinite while loop is a loop that continuously run without a break, without getting break. Do you understand? Without having a break instruction, or a, do you understand, a break expression. So if you do this, you have to press Ctrl C. Wait, okay, it's still running. It's still running. Let me punch Ctrl C to, let me just put let me remove this so as you see what I mean by it is still running. Let me run it again. Or let me say, okay, let me say while n is greater than equals to 1 or 0. While n is greater than 0, let me show you how infinite loop. Really want to show you how it works. You see that it keep printing without ending. It keep printing because there is no control. I have said while n, and of course we initialize n to be 1. So by saying while n equals greater than 0, of course the initialization so is greater than, so it will keep running until your system dies. So let's cancel it. Sometimes it proves stubborn. So what I will do is just close this and alter it by saying uh, less than greater than 10, and run it again because it will keep running. It will keep running. I think it should have stopped now. Yes. So you can just delete this. If you are punching Ctrl C to kill it and it's not killing, it's not dying, just use uh just delete this console and correct your code and rerun. So that is that. I hope you have understanding of how that is working in practical. So you can see that while loop is set to execute as long as the value in the variable n is is less than or equals to 10. So in the loop, you print the value of variable n and increment it by 1 to print the next successive value. That I just did that in example. So you also saw that the while loop terminates when the logical expression evaluate to false, which is after 10. Of course, the next thing is what? False. So that's evaluated to false. So it's we limited it to what? 10 by saying less than or equals to what? 10. So also, what if you want to skip the loop on occurrence of some condition? So the next this thing now that I will do, uh, we show us how to skip to skip loop on occurrence of what some conditions. That is where we'll be using breaking and continuing a loop. That is a break statement. So we're gonna be moving towards using what a break statement. So what is a break statement? What is a break statement? Let me clean this. What is a break statement? Uh, First of all, by saying breaking and continuing a loop, I would want you to agree with me that there are two situations when the loop terminates and you can exit from a loop. So when the logical expression evaluates to false and on occurrence of a break statement in the loop, you understand? So the break statement per se, let me give a definition of it. The break statement. Uh, break statement is the break statement terminates. Break statement terminate and exit. It terminates and exits from the current loop. From the current loop, it breaks and terminates from the current loop and resume execution. and resume what uh, execution of the program, that is from the statement following the loop, and execute and resume the execution of the program. Resume the execution of the program. From the statement following the loop. The statement what following the loop, and that is what a break statement is, and it is typically used in an infinite loop. In case the infinite loop we showcased before now, there's a way we could terminate it using a break statement. But I didn't do that, but I will show, I will demonstrate how to do that in this next example. So let me just write it down that it is typically used. Okay, it is typically used in an infinite loop. It's typically used an infinite loop, in an infinite loop. You understand? So that is where the break statement is being used. So the syntax for it is this. The syntax is simply what say. If the syntax is simply break. That is just it. There is nothing about it. So break in lowercase, remember, is a keyword. So it's a keyword in Python. So let's say, let me think of an example. Hmm, okay, okay. Let me use the same example where we can say, instead of saying while n is less than equals to 10, we can simply say while one. Is that we say while one, let's say while one, or while true. We can also say while true. Is that we say while one or while what true. Do you understand? So let's start with while one and see if it will give us what we are saying. So print n, increment n. Then we will now give it a condition that after you have incremented n. But if you get to a position, say if, that is where we use if statement. If n has now gotten to a position that is what greater than 10, you understand? Yes, fine. While one, print n, increment it. But if n has gotten to 10, you understand? That is an if statement. That's another conditional statement with what? With a colon, which means the next line will be indented because it will be under if. So let's say after you've discovered that, you see that uh, uh, VS Code Python is already showing me the next thing I should say. You see, it's already giving me a clue of what to do. So just what break. Don't continue. If it gets to what, if n greater than what 10, just break. You understand? Just what break. So let's try it. We are using while one. We also use what while true. You see? So you will see that it printed the same thing with what? There is no what? Infinite loop. But if you remove that break statement, if you remove this thing here, it will print out, it will keep printing just the way it was showing you the other time. So don't try it. You might end up removing the battery of your device. So then let's say why true. Let's use why true because we have used why one. So let's use why true. You see that it will bring out the same thing. You see, while one or while true works for what we are trying to demonstrate. So that is that on break statement. Of course, we can as well. You can put your break statement in. You can make your break statement anything. We can as well say if the modulus of two equals what, say if n modulus 2 equals 0. That is, if any number that n is divisible by 2 without what? A remainder. You understand? Break. You understand? You understand? So it will break what at what? 2. You understand? That is that. You can just give it another condition. So by this, we initialize. You will see that we initialize the variable, which is this n equals 1, and that is we initialize it to what? A value of 1. Also, we set a while loop to run infinitely by saying is that y1 or y true. Then in the loop, we display variable n and then increment its value by 1, which is what we did here. Sure, understand? So when n becomes more than 10, which is the condition, the if condition there, we say we should exit from the what? Infinite loop through what? A break statement. So remember that the value 1 represent the boolean value true. I just told you it means y true or while 1. Sure, understand? So you can also be replaced by y1 or by y true, whichever one you want to choose. It's just to create a what? An infinite loop, and what? Breaking out of the what? Infinite loop. So now let's look at the statement that tells Python to skip the part of the current loop and begin with the what? Next iteration. That is a situation where we'll be using a continuous or a continuous statement. A continuous statement. Let's see. Continuous statement. Let's see. Continue statement. A continuous statement. Now, what is a continuous statement? The continuous statement stops execution of the current iteration by skipping the rest of the loop and continuing to what? To execute the loop with the next iterative value. So uh, let me write it out. Let me write it. The continuous statement, the continuous statement stops execution of the current iteration stops the execution of the what? Current iteration by skipping the rest of the loop. By skipping the rest of the loop and and um, continuing to execute, continuing to execute the loop with the next iterative value, with the loop with the say next iterative value. So it stops a particular iteration. It skip, you should understand, and but that is after stopping it, skip it and continue what? To execute the next iterative value regarding as regards the condition given to it. So the syntax for it is what? Simply the syntax is say continue in lowercase. The syntax is what? Continue. So let's see how this is working in practical. Let's demonstrate how this will work. Let's still maintain this our example here. So let me see how to put it. Let's say I say n equals 1, and I say while n is less than equals to 10. Okay, let me say while n is less than equals to what? 10. You understand? So in this case, we need to let me clean this. We are not using this. So in this case, we can say why okay, as we have said, while n is less than equals to 10, if n equals say gets to what? 7. Let's say we don't want it to print 7. So if n equals 7, that is an if statement. First of all, increment it and what? Continue. So increment increment it. After incrementing it, continue, continue. You understand? Then we need to break out of the if. Sorry, and I use key. We need to, sorry, excuse me, this is n. So we need to continue. So fine, after we have said it should continue, we need to break out of the uh, yeah, if block. So how do we go out of the if block? We just, you will see that the moment I punch enter on VS Code, it VS Code understood that I need to leave the what that is as a result of me installing Pylance extension. So it recognized that I need to move out of the what of the if block. So I'll now say print say n. You understand? You will see that this print statement is under while block. It's not under if block because it is on the same line. It's on the same line with what? If block. So it's not under if block. It's under what? While block. This statement that is indented here is inside what? If block. So I now say print n. So after saying print n, of course I need to increment it too, because the print statement is answerable to while the continue and the incrementation of the first this thing is answerable to what? Is answerable to if. So we can now while to need something to increment, which is what? N equals say plus equals 1. You understand? So by printing it now, I don't want you to get confused here. First of all, we initialize. Secondly, we make a while statement, say n is less than equals to 10. So if n equals 7, increment it. Do you understand? Continue. So these two things here is saying leave this thing, just increase, go to the next instead of writing 7, increment it, go to the next thing, so then continue. Shey you understand? Then print n, all of this. Shey you understand? So Python will come from while and now check, okay, there's a condition here, let me check and check, okay, I've understood the condition. So what next do I need to do? Okay, print it, I should print it, but with regards to this what? Condition. So let's say you will see that from this code, it will exempt, or uh it will not print 7 because you have indicated it not to print 7. Right? Let's see. You'll see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. After 6, it's incremented and continue from 8, 9, 10 because 7 is not included. What if we want to say if n modulus 2, anything divisible by, say, any number that is divisible by 2, eh, by saying this, we are saying any number that is divisible by 2, don't print it. That is what I just did now. By changing this, I'm saying, n modulus 2, if a modulus of a number is equals to 0, it means it is this. That number can be divisible by what precede modulus. N can be divisible by 2 without what? A remainder. But if n modulus a number is divisible by, is equals 1, it means that number cannot be divisible by that number without what? A remainder. N cannot be divisible by that number without what? A remainder. But in this case, if it's equals 0. So here, all even number will not be what? Printed, because n modulus 2 equals 0, we what? Not print any even number. Of course, 2 is an even number. So let's see how this is working in practical. So I think what will not be printed should be 2, 6, and 2, 6, 8, and what? 10. Let's see. So what is printed? Like I said, 2, 6, 8, and 10 will not be printed. So what is printed is 1, 3, 5, and what? 7. We can as well say n modulus 2. Let's say we want to print only even number. We want to remove odd number. So by removing odd number, we will now equate it to what? 1. By equating it to 1, we are saying that, okay, any number that is not divisible by 2 without a remainder. Of course, you know that odd numbers cannot be divided by 2 without what? A remainder. So she understand. So if a number is if that number is divided by 2 and there is what? A remainder, definitely skip it. continue from the next line. That is what it means here. So let's see. So in this case, we are only going to get what? Even number. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 will not be printed. Yes, we have even number 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And of course, we can even say any number divisible by 3, any number divisible by, you understand? So that is that on uh, a continuous statement. Another statement I forgot to mention is past statement. Past statement. Past statement. What is a past statement? It skipped my mind. Sorry. What is a past statement? Let me clean this. Let me clear this off. Past statement. Past statement. I forgot. Past statement. What is a past statement? What is a past statement? The past is used. The past PSS is used. It is. Let me try to. It's a statement that is used in Python to indicate an empty block of statement. You understand? It is also used as a placeholder for code. Excuse me, as a placeholder for code that you want to write later and act as a reminder of where a program can be expanded. You can rewrite let me say, okay, let me give the definition. Our past is used, or is it past statement? Past statement is used in Python. It's used in Python to indicate an empty block, to indicate an empty block is used in Python to indicate an empty block of statements. Indicate an empty block of what? Statements. You understand? And it's also used, it is also used as a placeholder. It's also used as a placeholder for code that you want to write later, for code that you want to write later, code that you want to write later. Let's say an act as a remainder of an later an act as a reminder. Sorry, not remain. Reminder. Let's say an act as a reminder to remind you of the reminder of where a reminder of where a program can be expanded or written upon. Let's say let me think of an example to use. Okay, we can still use our example to see how this is working in practical. Let's say okay, of course, n equals 1 while n is less than equals to 10. Yes, then if uh okay, we can say, instead of using continue, we can say if here we don't need to increment, and of because let's say here we don't need to continue, we can now say if say if n modulus 2 equals 1 pass. You understand? Else else you can now say else print, we need to indent this, print this and increment by this. You know why I had to indent why I had to indent print statement is because there's an else statement. So else will now be a what? Answerable. This else statement will now be answerable to a what? To while loop. She understand. So anything because else is answerable to while loop. Now else is just like is doing the job of a variable here because print statement is what inside of what else. So else is answerable to while loop. You understand? So by else answerable to while loop, it will print what I will need to indent print statement so that it can execute what the else statement wants. And of course, the incrementing must be in the same line with what else block. So by running this, it will now it will pass uh, anywhere there is there is anywhere we have n modulus 2 equals 1. That is if n the value of n is not divisible by what 2. You understand? It will pass. Let's see how this is. Let's see. You will see that of course it's printed what 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So it's in practical is doing a similar job. You can see that it's doing the kind of similar job uh of continuous statement, but in with a reduced or minimized or more uh with a more concise or succinct code. You understand? So you can see that the value of n is generalized as usual to 1, and the while loop will execute until what n becomes larger than 10. So in the while loop, the value of n is displayed and its value incremented by 1. When the we can see that when the value of n uh, is when that is the condition, that is the modulus of n equals to, if it is equals to 1, the pass statement is what executed, and of course n is not displayed and is incremented by 1 to execute the loop with the next value in sequence. So now I think the next thing we're going to be doing now is what range function. Range function. Let's quickly do range function. Range function. So let me control A, cancel range range let me range function. Range function. What is a range function? Because today, after I still need to give I don't know if I can give one more example in loop. Okay, in while loop. But we need before. Okay, I think we understand what while loop is now. So I will give an example. I will give an assignment on while loop. I'll give several assignments here, but before I go to for loop, I quickly need to uh, do what range function and treat range function. Range function. What is range function? Range function. Uh, the the range function is written like this. This is how range function is written. Um, function generate and return. It generates and return. It generates and returns a sequence of. It generates and returns a sequence. It generates and returns a sequence of integers. A sequence of integers, and it's very commonly used in looping statements, and it is say it is very commonly used. It is very commonly used in looping or in loop. Let me not write in looping statement. In loop, it's very commonly used in what in loop. There are three variations of range. There are three types of range function. Variations of variations of range. There are three variations of range functions. We have um, we have uh, by variations we mean okay by variations we mean uh, something that depends upon the number of parameter passed to it. That is the number of parameter passed to this um, open bracket, open and close bracket. So that's why we mean by this thing. So when we have something like say range of x, For example, let's say range of x. What this does is what? It returns, what it does is it returns, what it does is it returns a list whose items are consecutive integers from O included and say to X excluded. So let's say, let me write it out. It returns, a list. It returns a list whose items are consecutive, whose items are consecutive integers from O included. Let me put included, from O included to X excluded. So it returns a list whose items are consecutive integers from O included to X included. That means if I say something like say range 10, you understand? It means the range 10 is a list of items of a list of consecutive integers from 0 to 9, because in this case, 10 is representing x, so x is included, so it will now be what, from 0 to what, remember indexing now, so from 0 to what, 9, instead of 0 to 10, because x is included. So in this case too, 10 is what, x is excluded, and in this case now 10 is what, excluded. So that is that. Then we have another one. We have range x, comma say y. What this does is it returns a list whose items are consecutive integers from x included to y excluded. Let me write it out. It returns a list whose items whose items whose items are consecutive integers from x x included to y excluded. X included to what, y excluded. So in this example, let's say we now have range of say, say we have range of say, um 2 comma 10. The previous one is just range of 10. So if there's no this one now is taking two parameters. In the initial one, the previous one was taking one parameter. If it's only one parameter that is in the range function, it will assume the starting to be what? Python will by default, the counting will start from what? The listing will start from 0. But yeah, we have two parameters. So invariably, the items are listed from where? From the first parameter to the next parameter, and the next parameter will be what, excluded. So in this case, we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10 is excluded because y is what, excluded. I hope I'm passing a message. Please, if you are having a question as to this, please let me know. So you understand. So the next one will be what, say the next one will now be say x comma y comma what, step. Now, you see this one here. What it does is it returns a list of integers from x included to y excluded, and the difference between each successive value uh, is the value uh, defined by step. Let me write it out. It returns a list whose items are consecutive uh, integers from um, x included included. So so y excluded, so y excluded, uh, and the difference and the difference uh, and the difference between each consecutive word, consecutive words, and the difference between each consecutive values. Sorry, difference between each successive value. What am I saying? Each successive and the difference between each successive value in the value defined by what or replaced by step, and difference between each successive value. Uh, okay, x excluded, y. I mean, x included to y excluded, and difference between each successive value, which is the value defined, which is the value defined by what step. This is what I'm trying to say. Let's say we have something like range. Let's say we have range 2 comma 10, and we have a step of uh say 2. What this is doing is it will start the listing by from 2 to y to 10 excluded, 2 included to 10, then step each of those counting by 2. Sure, understand. I think we'll be seeing how this is working in practical, so as for us not to, stay verbose in this thing. By the time we go to, I just want to have uh, a prior information or a tutorial on range, because we're going to be using them extensively in for loop. You understand? So I just want you to have an idea of how range works. She understand. So by the time we start using them in for loop, you will have a good understanding of how it is working in practical. So let's see how this is working in practical. Of course, I need to define a for loop, because we are going to go to for loop now. So I hope you followed up, and of course I want to clean this. Let me clear this off. So by that we should be comfortable with going into for loop. For loop. Now, the for loop iterates through a sequence of objects. The for loop iterates through a sequence of objects. The for loop iterates through a sequence of objects, and the sequence is like just like a container that may be in form of a list, in form of a tuple or string. You understand? And of course, a sequence. Let me write it. A sequence is like a container. Is a container. A container uh, is a container object. Let me say container object. The container object that will be in the form of a list, may be in the form of a list, um, may be in form of a list, tuple or string, for example. You understand? Or a string, for example. So containers in Python, remember, containers in Python means like something like set sequences like such as list, tuple, and strings, and mapping such as dictionaries. You understand? So you will learn about these containers in details when we start using sequences and stuff. So you will learn more about them. So let's not delay ourselves uh, with trying to explain what containers are. So the syntax for for loop is say for. for um for logical expression or iterating variable in sequence. So let me say for iterating variables in sequence. Let me say iterating variable in sequence. Do you understand? Iterating variable in sequence. Do you know what iterating variable is? Iterating variable is a variable that is used to iterate. You can take for anything in anything. For I in this, for I in a sequence, for I in the list, for I for J, for K, for whatever. You will see how we will be using that in practical. So for iterating variable in sequence, we can say, of course, indent statement one, the logical statement one, say do this, statement two, she understand, say do this, she understand, for this and this, do this, do this, do that. That is just how it is being used. So you can see that the first item, which is the statement one in this sequence, is assigned to the iterating variable. You understand? The statement block got executed. So one by one, each item in the sequence are assigned to what iterating a variable, and the statement block is what is executed until the entire sequence is what finished. So until the entire what sequence is what finished. So um let's try to see how this is working in practical. Let me try to use let me try to use range to iterate through a for loop. Let me clean this off. So in for loop, there is no need to initialize. You understand? So we can simply say for I. The I here is what the iterating variable, because it's used to iterate through what a sequence. For I in range, you see that Pylons has already suggested. You understand? Range. Say what do we put in our range? Let's say 1 to 11. So by putting 1 comma 11, we are saying let I be storing each of these consecutive number from 1 to 10, because 11 is not excluded. Start from 1, exclude 11. You understand? So remember our column, punch to indent to the next line. If it's not indenting, just enter. Because now I is the iterating variable. So it means instead of, the only thing we have to print here is what I, because I is what storing the each of the iteration inside each of the iteration inside the range is stored in what I, because an iterating variable. So we can say print I. Don't mind me, that I'm using I. You can use anything. You can use for Timson in range 1 to comma 11. You can use for print Timson. You can use for Tosin. You can use for root in range this and this. Print root. It will what? Print the value of it. Let's see how what this will print for us. You'll see that it's printed this. We can as well use that thing that we did and say, okay, Python print on a new line. End equals uh open bracket. It could be sorry. It could be single quote, it could be double quote. I'm just sticking to double quote. So it's printing on a single line, just as we did in what while loop. So that is that. And from this, it prints a sequence of number which are generated from what 1 to 10 using the what the built-in range function. 11 is not included; it's always excluded, because just like a y that I explained the other time. So since the value for step is not indicated, we didn't indicate the value for step. So the default value of 1 is the what step value. So let's see how to create a program to display the odd numbers between 1 and 10. So let's see, rather than, let's say, okay, let's use a for loop. mm, Okay, let's create a for loop um to print odd numbers between what 1 and 10. We can make our program to print something. Let's say we can say print odd numbers. We can say print odd numbers between 1 to 10, between 1 to 10. We can say print odd numbers between 1 to 10. Let's say odd numbers between 1 to 10 are, say, this. Uh, then we can now create our for loop. We can say for I in range. In is a keyword, for is a keyword. Do you understand? I is the iterative variable. Range is also what, a keyword. So it's a built-in. So range is a built-in. So um let's say 1 comma, say 11. Let's now say comma 11. Let's say step by 2. So by stepping by 2, for this, print I, print I, print I. So by this, it will print odd numbers. It will what? Print odd numbers because you are stepping by 2. So after 1, it will step by 2 and print 3. It will step by 2 again and print 5. You understand? 1, instead of 2, it will step. She understand. If it is stepping by 1, it will be what? 1, 2, 3. She understand. But it's stepping by 2. 1, 2, 3, print 3, 4, print 5. She understand. Print 6, and on and on like that. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So that is how that's it. So we can run it again and see that our code says odd numbers between 1 to 10 are 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So we are even making our code to communicate to us. So you see that the function uh, first generated a value to one, value of 1. So to the next, to this value, the step value is 2, which is 2 was added to generate the next value in the list, which is what, 3. So the process continued until it generated the value in less than or equal to what, 10. So a for loop can be used to print random value from a tuple. We will discuss, of course, tuple in later lessons. So for now, it is sufficient to know that a tuple is, of course, an immutable object. Remember, the last class I explained, but we've not really dealt with it. So a tuple is an immutable number or object that can be what used to represent a set of values of any data type. So the values or element of a tuple are enclosed in parentheses, that is in an open bracket. So an immutable object is one that cannot be changed, like I said. So it is when once it is created. Uh, we will be using a membership operator to display element from tuple. So I think on our next lesson we will be doing a membership. We'll be trying to use a choice function, random choice function, and all that, so that we can quickly move to sequences and that. So I hope you've been able to gain something today, and if you have not, please always communicate to me, write to me in Discord, write to me on Telegram. I'll always respond to you. Even on WhatsApp, you have my WhatsApp details. And if you don't have, you can always write it in the comment section. I will send you a message, or I'll get to you and get my contact over to you. So thank you very much. If you are still confused as to anything, please write in our comment section. I'll do my best to answer those. If you love this video, if you feel this lesson is top notch, you can feel free to share it, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and of course, give a good comment, share it to your friends so that everybody can see it, so that it can go round. Thank you very much, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so as for you to keep getting new and new. Subscribe, and of course, um, and click a notification so that whenever we drop our lecture, you'll be notified rather than you waiting to be informed wherever or something. So, thank you um, for your time, and God bless you.